I've got a bit of a problem. I can't stop gardening. And I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about why, while this fan spins on my head like one of those little hats. So basically, I got into gardening almost a decade ago now. I'd grown plants a little bit as a little kid. We grew some melons, I remember, some cantaloupes, and I grew sunflowers outside the front door of our house. And I've always been intrigued by plants, but what was really my gateway plant had to be cannabis. I'm not going to get too deep into that, but this brought me into a world of people growing things organically and telling me, hey, you don't really want the stuff. It's sprayed, it's this, it's that. And then all of a sudden, all these pieces start clicking into place, and you're like, why is one of my base needs as a human food? Why is that not being met to the highest caliber, highest quality? How come we're not doing this better, this base thing? And there's a lot of things like this in the world that you could look at, but we're just gonna look at gardening and food right now. So this intrigued me on my quest, and I was lucky enough to spend some time living in Santa Barbara, where I got inundated with the farmers market culture up there. Santa Barbara has one of the best farmers markets in the world. They definitely have one of the best markets in California. And because most markets will let in other craft vendors or people that just make pre-made food products or hot food, not everyone at most farmers markets is actually even a farmer. A lot of people are just companies, and that's cool too. Those are kind of like craft markets and pop-up markets, so I wouldn't really consider that a farmer's market. In Santa Barbara, it's all farmers. So I got access to all this different food of high caliber quality, and suddenly I was like, oh man, you can't buy garlic at the grocery. You can't buy oranges. You can't buy peaches. Like, you're not going to get what you should be getting. You're not going to get that high quality. You're not going to get that consistency, that relationship with the farmer. And I got really intrigued and drawn into it. And now, as time's gone on, I'm learning there's so much to it. Every season, you only get a window of opportunity to attempt any of the things that you have planned. And guess what? The things that you worked, or the things that worked great for you last year, they might not work for you the same this year because the weather, the bugs, all the conditions are going to change. So it's really this, like, you got to be on your toes. You got to be always ready to change something, flip something around, change what you believe about something if you want to be successful. So as time has gone on, I've been really researching and diving into all sorts of regenerative, polyculture, permaculture, syntropic agroforestry, anything that you can do that's going to be minimal input, maximal output. How can you get good yields? And throughout this process, I've found that so many things are not as cut and dry as they try to explain it to you. Someone will say, you have to do this or else, or you will never do this or it'll ruin your crop. And it's like, not true, not true, not true. Some things do hold true. And there are some things like if you, there are just some things like if you plant a bigger bulb of garlic, a bigger clove, you'll get a bigger bulb, a bigger head, excuse me. So plant a bigger clove of garlic, get a bigger head. That's kind of it works out like that. But there's a lot of things that are not true at all. Like you have to till your field. That's total BS. You don't have to do that at all. So what this got me to is realizing that the technology of farming is actually very, very a certain type of way. And to explain that, most farming is monocrop. And I would argue that the monocrop nature of agriculture is partly because of the slave agriculture and now the current migrant labor agriculture practices that we use. Since it doesn't matter if you have food all year because you can get it from somewhere else, since you can bring the laborers in once a year to pick all of your single variety of fruit, since it's easier to wholesale it, a lot of farmers aren't selling direct. So we don't have access to farm technology that is designed to be efficient for people. It's only designed to be efficient for tractors and technology for a capitalist that's extracting something from the soil. So a lot of our farming technology that we think is cutting edge is like John Deere tractors and stuff. And why don't you go look up the right to repair laws and what's going on with John Deere and other companies like that, and what's going on with your cars and the phone that I'm recording this on. All of this technology is patented and has all these other reasons why you can't use it to its fullest extent. You can't repair the things that you own. I keep using a lot of air quotes here. Hopefully I'm not overdoing the air quotes. But so as technology progresses, you think, oh yeah, we're going to be getting way better yields. We're going to be getting this, we're going to be getting that. And what's going to happen is food's going to be way cheaper, more affordable, higher quality, more variety. Wrong. We've got less variety. We've got less quality, And I would say even in some cases, less availability of certain kinds of food. Like I live in California, in Southern California, and we grow so much food here in California, like tons of food. We got the longest growing season in the country, and we grow probably the most variety of food. And so the problem here is that you can be in one county and have no access to any of that food. It's a food desert, an area where they grow food because the farmer doesn't sell directly in that community. So it creates all these weird problems. There's the migrant labor problem. There's the giant swaths of land, the monocrop agriculture problem, the soil degradation problem. And there's only a handful of farmers that seem to be actually tackling this problem. So this has been one of the areas of intrigue for me, and I've been just diving deep on like, what can I learn about this? And I know it's not that I have to learn this specific microbe, I don't need to learn like these specific details in order to be good at this. I need to actually practice it hands-on and learn these details. And then you can put those two things together to make inferences that help you make better decisions as the future progresses. And you might learn how to grow really well in one area, and then it's different in another area. So you have to have these core principles, that foundation of how to grow things differently. One book that really opened up my mind to different styles of farming was One Straw Revolution by Masanobu Fukuoka. Sorry if my Japanese is not very good. Anyway, he was a plant pathologist, meaning he specialized in plant diseases. And his job when he was younger was actually checking plants as they got imported into Japan and making sure that they didn't have any diseases that they didn't want to spread to the island of Japan, which could easily be wrecked by something invasive coming in there. Eventually, he inherited his family's farmland, and he just decided, wait, maybe this isn't the right way. And he started questioning everything after he was ill at one point. He came back from that sickness, questioning everything about farming, being like, maybe we don't have to transplant the rice. Maybe I can just sow it directly. And bit by bit, he made natural farming. That's what he calls it. But now, if you search natural farming, you're going to find all sorts of other stuff, KNF, whatever. But Fukuoka's style of natural farming is a philosophy. It's about how to do the least. He calls it do nothing farming. It's not really do nothing. It's very do little. Do as little as you can to disturb things and figure out what you can do. And you can actually get really good yields with just one person using hand tools working in a field. And that could be a good livelihood for them. And if you're growing a multiple varieties of crops, then you can actually have your workers stay in your town. So you won't have these disparate farm towns where the migrant labor just comes through on these trailers and picks everything and then leaves if you don't have farmers doing monocrop. And you won't have all these same problems with all these diseases and all sorts of different things, soil degradation, etc., if you're doing polyculture, permaculture style, natural farming style stuff. So as time's progressed, still not a ton of people have taken up the mantle, and there's a lot of reasons for this. One of them is probably because land is expensive. And if you aren't owner of the land, you can't practice these natural styles of farming. There are so few and far between areas where people are actually practicing this stuff. And in a lot of the places where they are, they're using volunteers. So they're not actually training people and hiring people. They're just like, we're a nonprofit. We're going to just have these hippies come and work here and live on the property and pay them jack. And they're just going to accept it because we're training them. We're teaching them. And it's like, but they're not really forward thinking. They're not doing experimentation. They're not learning. They're not growing. And so this is why I can't stop gardening. Because every year, I just feel like I'm uptaking so much more information about it. And it's constantly growing and expanding in my mind versus something like I do carpentry for a living. And it's like, yeah, I'm constantly learning and growing on that. But it's like the wealth of information that there is to learn on woodworking versus the wealth of information that there is that's constantly changing with plants and gardening and farming. It's like, this is just so much more interesting. My mind is so much more enamored by this. And yet you need a few $1,000s worth of tools to start doing carpentry the way that you want. You need land to start doing farming the way that you want. So it's kind of interesting how there's a barrier for entry there. And I think it's preventing us from learning a lot from people that are down to do these experimentations. So what have I learned so far? I've learned that there are plenty of things that you do need to follow the rules with, but there's plenty of things that you can bend the rules, and that there's a lot of room for interpretation on the way things can go to actually be functional. And if you can cut out those unnecessary steps of labor and you can apply this to any industry, I think there's actually a word for this when you go in I'm not looking for a word like efficiency. There's like a specific word when you go in and make things work a whole lot better and flow and function more efficiently. Maybe related to like Henry Ford or something. But yeah, you want your stuff to just be flowing. So you don't want to be doing all sorts of unnecessary work that doesn't actually produce for you the yield that makes it worth the time that you're putting into it. So I feel like I've learned a lot of these techniques now, and now I'm just like itching to get my hands on some farmland. And hopefully I'll be able to do that in the next couple of years. Got a solid job, working, trying to save up some money, and learn and learn and learn and learn. And then when the time comes and I do get some land, hit the ground running with all this wealth of knowledge and experience that I have growing plants in different environments, different varieties of plants, and figuring out ways that are low input of effort and energy and high yield, high reward. So that people could get back to farming as people. Like you could make more money actually working a market garden by hand than you can make working a huge field by tractor on a per acre basis. So why are we farming in such a bad way that we can't employ people, that it leaves it all in the hands of capital? It's like we do need a one straw revolution, one farm at a time. So hopefully one day I'm going to get mine. Hopefully you can understand why I'm obsessed, why I can't stop. It feels like a science that people are like not delving into to the fullest extent. And here's the thing, they can't really, we'll get to that in a second. They can't really patent seeds, all right? They can't really take away your ability to garden by hand with hand tools. All that stuff's old technology. No one's going to come and be like, without this sickle, you can't harvest rice. It's like, well, I have this sickle, so buzz off, right? So because of that, it's not really good for venture capitalists to get into, because they want something that can explode and be like a bajillion dollars more than it started with, that you just, something that doesn't really exist, right? And so there's not a lot of venture capitalists that want to get into farming and growing stuff because it doesn't make sense for their cost calculation. And so there's a huge brain drain from this whole industry because people aren't getting funded to learn about it and to do it. So hopefully, once I'm on some land and farming, I'll be able to actually do some deeper level experiments and bring some real wealth of knowledge for everyone so that it can make it easier, more understandable, and empower people that all you need is some seeds, some dirt, a little bit of love, elbow grease, and you're good to go. Some water and sunlight, and you'll figure it out. Now, they are trying to patent some seeds like GMO stuff, and that's one of the reasons I'm really against GMOs, is the kind of crap that Monsanto is doing with patenting of seeds, trying to patent the genetic information. And this is why I'm really hesitant to farming technology. As it advances, there's always a way that they can patent it. I don't want any company having dominion over the food supply and saying, oh, you can't have this technology to grow food like this. I would prefer to know how to do it without that technology. Sorry, I got interrupted. I'm here from the future to finish the video. So I was talking about farming technology, and although they can patent all this like hydroponic and other kind of like GMO farming technology, they can't patent those old techniques that you can just do with hand tools. And so the more that people can learn these techniques, I feel like the more that society will be empowered to grow its own food and take care of itself at a base need level, something that we need, but without being beholden to the corporate entities that seem to corrupt and make crappy everything around us. So if we could avoid buying from those companies, if we could avoid that farming technology being patented and take back our power in that sense, I just really want to spread that information. So hopefully my farming journey, my plant growing journey will lead me to a place where not only can I physically share things with people at a farmer's market, I don't just want to homestead, I'd like to feed the community, but also to be able to provide seeds, genetic information, clones, etc., and information to people so that they can empower themselves and their communities to grow healthier in a sustainable way that's regenerative, local, and good for the community, good for everyone. So that is why I'm hooked on farming, and hopefully that sums it up for you. So if you are really into this stuff, then let me know why in the comment section. I'd like to hear. All right, that's the end of this video. Ciao.